Let's move on to, because this one's going to be a good one.
Yeah, we've done that.
Western Sydney Giants, GWS, and the Adelaide
Oh, what a
Crows.
butcher.
Going into this one, this was a huge flip because GWS looked horrible early on. Adelaide were all over them. Adelaide were, hitting and lowering their eyes, hitting targets, kicking the ball inside 50. Looked really prolific. And I was like, wow, like they actually look really good. GWS don't look very good at all. And then slowly but surely the tide turned, and I think the first half, Adelaide's pressure was, very good. And then the second half, Adelaide's pressure stayed basically the same, dropped like 5 points, which is not much on a pressure rating. And GWS just ranked it up to like 200 pressure. And Adelaide couldn't cope. And pretty much they just clawed their way back from there, which is pretty much the story of it. Now, lots and lots of carnage to come from this game, which is going to have a lot of Supercoach relevance coming up for both teams. Because, first of all, Harry Perryman did a hamstring, so he's likely out for what, a few weeks, Chris?
Usually
The
hamstrings are
old
3 to
Perry?
4. Yeah, it's a 21-day injury. If it's unless he's had like a previous reoccurrence, in which case generally the timeline doubles to 6 to 8. So yeah,
Yeah,
3 to 4 he's
so
out for.
apparently, secret trick, he will be having lots of chicken and chips for a bit of peri peri. Lockie Whitfield was a big one because
that
he was horrible. He
was great. Thank
bit
you. I needed that.
of
Sort of perked me up.
bit of Nando's, a bit of
Yeah, it's
Nando's.
great.
Bit of pick me up. So yeah, Whitfield was not doing well. Did not look prolific. Adelaide were all over them anyway,
Well,
so it didn't really sort
in
of
the first half,
sit.
they couldn't get the ball. Like they couldn't control
Yeah,
the ball, and moving the ball forward at all was just like an absolute. It was not going to happen. I think there was like in the first quarter maybe 9 or no 8 behinds that Adelaide kicked. So it's not like they didn't have like the chance, but then what they tried to do, so Cumming was to generally taking the kick outs, and he would just go long down the line and then it'd turn over and then come back straight back in. Like they didn't try that sort of control play or try and do anything with the footy or try and do anything to try and go through the middle or anything. They were just like, we're getting pummeled here. We need to control the ball. We're just going to go long down the line, and their forwards gave them absolutely nothing. No contest, nothing. It was ridiculous. Like I would have been furious if I was Kingsley. Like they just got nothing out of their forward line, forward of the center when they were trying to move the ball forward. Um, so yeah, it just meant that like guys like Ash, obviously who I had, and I was watching this really in depth from their backline to see what that sort of mix looked like. Ash, Whitfield, they didn't have any of it. Coming, the only way that he got the ball was basically from kickouts. Um, then even their wingers, so Callahan had a really great first quarter, and then I think he had
did
one touch
nothing
the
in the
entire of
second.
the second quarter. And I was like,
Yeah,
yeah,
did nothing.
they
It was,
just
it was
could
on the
not
opposite
move the
wing.
ball. Yeah,
It was on the opposite wing as well. It literally did not go anywhere near the wing he was on. And I was
yeah.
watching him as well at that point. I was just like, my God, they just
So
ran
they're
it every time the other side.
it's like they forgot how to move the ball, what they've been doing all preseason, like how they've been playing. It's crazy. And then the second half comes, and I was talking to you guys, and I was like, man, Adelaide have played that well. They should be 10 goals up, but they're not. They're
Mm,
not, and they're going to lose this
yeah.
game. I
Yeah.
just picked it straight off the bat, and I read an interview with so Rory Laird went on an interview, so obviously he had a massively bad game, and they asked him what did they do because you didn't get tagged and Perriman went off, so like you weren't tagged. Like, can you explain why your performance was the way it was? He's like, yeah, so they played me differently to anyone has played me before, and they pushed all of us mid. So Laird confessed this online. I don't know why he would tell everyone this, by the way.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, so I generally like when it comes to a stoppage, I was stopping at the point of the ball where I thought it was going to fall, as opposed to running through and going with the rack work or following the midfielder. He was stopping, and they were putting a body up against him so that he couldn't get to it, and they were tapping to the other side. So Flynn was dominating the hitouts to advantage. They were going to the opposite side to where to Laird was at all times, and because he was stagnant, he couldn't run after them. So the ball's just tapped away, and you see the amount of times Canelio and Kelly, they just were running through full pace and getting these like on a platter dishes out from Matt Flynn, who was like who killed Rob in the second half, absolutely killed him. At one stage I said to you guys, like Rob might get dropped from this performance. It was an incredibly bad midfield performance in that second half from them, and they all got absolutely smashed just by congesting that up and having that one runner come through, and they didn't have the same going the other way. and it was crazy. So
Adding
yeah,
adding to Rory Laird though as well, he did have a bit of strapping tape on his hand as well before that game. I don't know if that impacted his ability to tackle, but it's quite a bit of strapping. Like I don't know if you've seen, but it's a definitely not a little bit of strapping around the thumb and the hand area. And
yeah,
the other thing I'll note, Rory Laird also said, "Oh, like it was very hot out there and
Yeah.
stuff." I'm like,
yeah,
mate,
and
you've
it
just
was.
trained,
They're all
you've
in that
just
though.
had yeah, but you've just had a
But that's right.
preseason in summer,
Yeah.
through summer, and then all of a sudden you go into, okay, now we're going into autumn. Yes, it's still warm, but what do you do a preseason through December and January and February for if you can't actually try and run through a little
It's
bit
like
of heat?
they've gone into halftime with like either the ice baths or the fans and everything like that, and literally come out and like the temperatures, as we know at that time of the day, goes up. That 5 6 degrees.
Yeah.
Some people are saying it's close to 40, and they've literally gone, "No, this is way too hot for us." Their whole midfield
And
just
tell
stopped.
Rory Laird he doesn't play 80% time on ground anyway, so stop his whining. Like, just
It's
Yeah.
play more
ridiculous.
time on ground if you want to, if you want to actually get a real shake.
Well,
So,
He's
um,
still he
yeah,
still played the
concerns.
same amount of time on ground that he did last year, but he did have a drop. This is one thing that I did notice that I was like, ooh, bit of a red flag. Um, so he did drop slightly in his CBAs. Last year he averaged 78%, which is the same as his time on ground. So basically, when he was on, if it's a CBA, he was in there. But he actually dropped to 71%. Now I don't know if that's a planned move to for him and Berry to both have basically 70%.
Hey, that's
So
10%, Chris.
yeah. Now they also ran 9 different players through CBAs. So Schoenberg had 39%, Saligo had 39, Rochelle had 29, Tyler Brown had 23, um, Rankin had 13, Keys had 13, and then Sloan and Sloan also had one as well, which was three. So
And
um,
McAdam had 4?
4 weeks.
4 weeks, yeah, 4 weeks, McAdam. That was a huge hit.
That
Holy
was hit.
shit.
That was a hit and a half.
That was a hit. You could see the sweat actually come off in a
Yeah,
fan
when
fashion
it
from his
yeah
body.
yeah
Ridiculous.
it looked pretty cool in slow
It was gnarly.
So yeah, look, obviously we with Laird, I think the overall consensus is you can probably definitely wait a week anyway. You get a free hit against Richmond this week who leaked points to midfielders. He's going to want to bounce back. Like he's not that sort of guy that's going to just go, oh well, may as well just throw away the season. He's going to want to bounce back. So I think it's probably
I
worth.
don't know. 3 p.m. game, Chris. Could be warm
Yeah.
outside. Don't want to
That's
stress
right.
him. If it was a nighttime game, I'd definitely keep. But it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's going to be probably quite warm, I imagine. So,
Yeah, pack your sunscreen, right?
oh
Yeah.
Jesus.
So I definitely think that overall you probably do just hold him, but I can understand that short. If you only go say 100, 110, or 115 or something, then the short's probably going to be on. So when I say short, what I mean for those guys playing at home is trading him out, trading back in later because he will drop. I think it's minimum um, straight up. He drops like 50K in that first one, and it goes down to almost 100K by round 4 or 5. Um, so then you
Yeah.
can bring him back in for 100K cheaper, and then and you've gained from other guys that you've brought in, etc. So I understand that short principle, and that
The
could be
other
one
thing
to
with the
do.
short principle is well, Chris, is the fact that he's meant to be a captain option. Now,
Mm,
with that score, I ain't putting a captain on him at all. So for me, it's also not just about shorting and trying to kind of maybe pick him up when he gets to 600 or whatever, but it's also the fact now I actually just lost a captain option.
But
So I'm
on that,
thinking of
Ben,
going from him to Clary because at least I know Clary's going to go me around 100 generally anyway and still rack up the pill
well,
and
see,
not get
but
me a 50.
I'm thinking that all the captain options have doubts about them that we'd normally have. That where it's like, we were talking about Neil. Yeah, he should bounce back, but we have until we properly see it with Dunkley. They've got the tough little fixture coming up. Mills is all over the shop. Took's still coming back from that hammy as much as he did well, but is he going to be able to pump the 130s and that? There's question marks about a lot of those guys, and
No,
yeah.
green is the way.
No, that's the
Green is
thing.
the
That's what I was
way.
about to say. It's actually the next level down guys, which especially Green playing West Coast this week is the one that gets me interested. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's still it's not the normal top five that we're going, oh yeah, now these guys are just your Lockett's captains. That might not be. But in saying that, very much like I'm thinking VC Laird, keep him in VC because
I'm actually
in the
100%
yeah
VCing Laird because
yeah
I think that it's worth the VC on the fact that he's just, if there's nothing physically wrong with him,
hmm
then there's no reason why he doesn't want to absolutely demolish that, like, statistically, because
yeah.
he loves a good stat pad. So, yeah, if I'm
On
gonna,
the flip
if he
though,
goes
20
140
isn't he
plus,
20 is he
sorry,
20% owned?
Oh, he's dropping.
He's only like
He's
20.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
but
I know he's dropping. So I mean, now you're going from say Clary's at 40 odd percent, right? So now a lot of people will be VCing him, and I'm thinking about jumping on that train on the VC wagon rather than stay on a sinking ship that no one's going to VC or see. Is maybe not the best bet.
yeah, but I don't think Clary's going huge against Brisbane.
Brisbane. Yeah,
Brisbane,
I
he's
think
done it
Brisbane bounced back.
before.
Yeah,
I think
I think,
Brisbane bounced back too,
yeah,
but
but
I think
before they
Clary's
didn't
going
have
to still
Dunkley,
tail us.
which is a much better matchup than anyone. And actually,
mm,
didn't Berry tag him last year?
he
Oh,
did.
in
They
the
didn't
second
like
half,
doing that, but they did do it.
only after he begged the coach to try and do something, and he goes, oh, "Okay, well, it's a final, and Clary was having everything." So then he put Berry on him. But now they've got Ashcroft and Dunkley in that midfield mix. They're not putting Berry on him. They'll go Dunkley on, and even then, it's now regular season where the coach is backing it in. He doesn't tag ever, and it was only in that one instance in the final where they were losing badly, and he goes, "Okay, I need to do something different." And
Well, they
pretty
got to
much
win
Berry
this week.
convinced him.
They have to
I
turn this
told
around.
you, they
Like,
have.
I'm, they don't want to be going into round 3, 0-3, and then they've got the Dogs at
Yeah, they'll beat the
Marvel.
Dogs. It's fine.
Dogs at
It's fine.
Marvel, really?
Yeah,
It's
it's
not an
fine.
easy
Yeah.
game. And
It's
then
not an
No,
round
easy game.
4,
this
Pies.
game's harder than that.
Oh,
Easy.
yeah.
You're our
I
bunny
mean,
team. So speaking of which, if you have a weak opponent, then
Well,
pretty much choose the premium, choose the bunny and watch them hop is pretty much the strategy for captains at this current point in time. But yeah, I think VC on Clary or Laird. Speaking of, we got to get through some more Supercoach relevant players here, boys. So we've got Perryman's injured, Whitfield concussed, he'll miss a week. Josh Kelly was looking on track for about 100, but also concussed, so he'll miss a week as well. Unfortunate
honestly,
for those that jumped on.
Kelly's score should have been much higher. He had some really early bad clangers. He had 7 clangers in his score and only 1 free kick in, so 6 direct clangers. And I reckon I counted 4 or 5 of them that were in the first 10 minutes of the game. He was on 6 Supercoach for 6 disposals,
mm,
and he had 4 clearances in that time. So unfortunately, like, if that was a normal game where he was going to a contest and splitting it, then he would have been on 30, 35 super, super early in that game because he was absolutely destroying them like very early, and then it completely flipped the other way. So
yeah,
his
Chris,
stat
because that's
line,
because they've gone. We need you to play Timmy Taranto's role.
yep,
Yep,
clearing the ball. Yeah. So
and
the
he's gone.
Interesting.
hackathon,
And he's
the
gone.
hackathon.
I'll hack the ball forward just like Timmy.
Um,
Callahan's one we need to talk about
Yeah,
as
Finn,
well. For the sheer
real good.
fact that he did extremely well. So really good super coach player because he's quite efficient. So he has generally a better super coach ratio for most of this game, and was on like 26 or so points at quarter time. Didn't really do much in the second, and but every kind of touch he gets, it kind of matters, and he really does have impact. So I thought he was actually on track for about a 70 or 80, but with all these injuries that started to happen, and with Kelly, it was pretty much like right. The ball just sort of went through him a little bit more. And I
yeah,
found that sort of quarter one and
second
quarter
half
four, he
they
just went really big.
second half they basically went just purely through Callahan's wing. That's how they moved the ball because so Adelaide had shut off the center of corridor, which is why Ash wasn't getting any touches because he played that central mid defender as that switch through to catapult them through the midfield, and he wasn't getting any ball. They started going downfield in Callahan's wing, and he kicked the ball at 87.5%. It was insane. Like, he's just a very, very good, efficient player. His role is still shitty though. So he had a good score, and he's had 2 good scores in a row. I don't know if it's sustainable with his role. Maybe that changes this week if he gets. Obviously, we've got all those injuries. He might get some more inside time. I'm not sure if he can sustain a 100 say average. But what do you
No,
guys
he's a
think
90
about
guy playing
him?
attacking wingman. I've said from day one, he's the attacking wingman.
Yeah.
I don't
Is he
I'm
expect
not?
to
Is
okay
steal
with
90
like
games.
an
even?
80 odd.
Yeah,
No,
I
I think
think
80 odd.
80s at his range. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty good. My
I went in
But
problem
I
is
think
expecting
they
a
midfield
75, 80.
spots. So how many midfield spots do you have? So you're probably playing Ashcroft. You're probably playing McKenzie. right now people probably have Hopper. We've got Setterfield as well. Um, if you're looking at, say, a Horn Francis, are you looking at a Warple? Like, how many of these guys are we trying to fit into that midfield to make it a viable thing? Um, that's my only issue. It's my issue in my team. It's probably why I wanted you guys to talk about it. So, Ben, go.
Yeah, no, and because when Mackenzie's also in that mix and he did well enough to show you he's good enough to be on field, so that does create a lot of complications because I'd rather him on field than say a defender rookie, etc. So that is the conflicting part. But the last thing on Callahan is that they do play West Coast this week, so I wouldn't be
Yes.
bringing him in early if I could, but I still expect that against West Coast he will probably still get a fairly good score. I went into it thinking he'll hopefully get me about 75 or an 80 and do me well enough before I could move him on and then banking on GWS's easy draw and fixture that they might actually get a few chains through him. I definitely think that if it doesn't go through his wing, which we already saw through a quarter there where he basically didn't touch it, I think he went from 26 Supercoach to 35, and it was only after maybe one or two decent touches late in that quarter, and pretty much didn't really get near it. So
What
I'm
I
happy that I'm kind of on him, but I wouldn't be jumping out of my skin to grab him.
So I think, and this is a guesstimate, but I think it's a fairly educated guesstimate, is what they tried to do in those first three quarters is essentially play along the wing where there was the shade. So and then so first quarter it was Callahan's wing, second quarter it was Ware's wing, third quarter was back to Callahan's wing, and then Ware was knocked out. So like, all right, well we'll just go through back through there. So that's what they were doing. So that's kind of where I was like, why are they doing this? And I was like, well, there's the shade on that end. Are they really playing through the shade? Is that a
Yeah,
tactic? And it is like it was hot, like it was 35 degrees, like so they were playing through the shaded wing, which was Callahan's wing. So, yeah.
Chris, you
Anyway,
just said where's ring.
where's wing?
Instead of where's wing, you said where's ring. They're playing through. They're
it's
playing
a
through where's ring. You
he's
said
a
they're
nice
playing
guy.
through where's ring. Yeah,
Good
yeah,
name.
nice guy. Lots of room in that wing.
There's definitely not two
um,
first names in his surname.
um, we need to touch on these two premiums though before we move on, and also like Dawson and also the other one who I want to touch on was Pedler. Now Pedler didn't have already had one goal, sorry, fairly late. I thought Pedler did link up quite well for an 83 Supercoach. Now his security's probably definitely made a little more viable. The fact that McAdam is now definitely getting suspended, in my opinion. So I think he's now someone to watch for next week. He could be a nice tempting option if you have, say, Long and these other small forwards that are very susceptible to low scores. I think Pedler could actually. I thought he was used as a link up player up the ground a lot more and actually showed some good composure delivering inside 50. So he impressed me quite a lot.
he's the
Any
one
words on Pedler,
Flanders.
boys?
He's the one that if you've got Flanders, you could go down to Pedler in the forward
And
line
free up
and
cash?
free up
Yeah.
70k.
Yeah, I thought he was very versatile and will probably make you 100. I don't know if he's going to make you 150 or more, but I think he's a good enough option to have around the mark. The other one, so Dawson did enough, I think, to be viable. High kick ratio again, as we spoke about. Good efficiency, good time on ground, the rest of it. But yeah, just kind of flattened out. I think 97, probably the lacking of that second half. I think from the Crows, pretty much where it did him in, Chris.
Yeah, he had a great score in that first half, but then obviously when it flipped, the ball was going over his head, so he had no chance
Yeah.
to impact the game.
That's what I was
They
wondering because I thought it was going over his head too. I just wanted to see if you thought the same thing.
Yeah, no. So I mean, they were killing him so much in the clearances that just didn't have time. And then when they moved the ball forward, they were going out wide to the Green
Yeah.
matchup, so they were targeting Toby Green in the forward 50 because the other guys were just. So,
Hmm.
like, honestly, this is a win that Great Western Sydney should look back on at the end of the year. And if they make the finals or something similar, like, I don't think they're that good, but like, let's say they do. How did they win this game? How did Adelaide throw it away? Because they had no right to do it. Just quickly, Canelio, is he a must have?
Well,
Cornelia.
yeah,
Oh,
he's going to be top 6. I think it's just when you
Is he
jump
a
on
must
him.
have
I don't
before
know.
his price rise? Is he a must have before next week with now
Oh, the
no
problem is now
Perryman,
he's
no
well,
Kelly?
yeah, no Kelly, no Perryman, no Whitfield. So he's the main man in there with Green. I
and
know
against
that
West
talk
Coast.
about him, he's going to spend time forward at different parts and that, but like West Coast, like we know he's got the potential to go 150 plus. And we just saw North Melbourne absolutely midfielders like LDU just tear West Coast midfield a new one. So if it's not Green, it's Cadillo going massive. It's
Yeah, well,
hard
the
to
thing
ignore.
is, like,
Oh, I think
so
they all go massive.
if you're shorting Laird and you have to do it this week for whatever reason, I think he's the best option. So
He is. Yep.
yeah, you're going to make 150K on that trade, and then you can possibly go from say a Flanders like up to a Zeeble or a JHF or whatever. You can get a rookie all the way up to a mid pricer with that extra cash. So, or maybe even um, get up to Dacos that way. You have a little bit of cash, or you work away around your trades to be able to get, say, a Liam Jones up to Dacos. That could be a thing, or a Ridley. So settle down that defensive one. But I really like him. I just can't. I'm not going to pull the trigger on Laird because I think he's going to go huge this week, and I'm going to give him one more chance. But after that, if Laird says I'm not that player anymore, then Kenilio is probably the one I get before his price rises. And I really hate the fact that they're playing West Coast this week, and I'll miss that because I think he does go
Oh,
on fire.
so good on the West Coast. Laird down to Cornelia. There you go. Free yourself up 150,000, ladies and
You heard it here
gentlemen.
first.
Perfect.
Yep.
Perfect. Perfect. Done and done and done. Green's the other one I think could go absolutely monster.
Huge.
Yeah, just heaps. Yeah, 15 contested possessions. I mean, Canelli had 11 as well. Ward was the one that really did come in there when Preeman went out. Ward pretty much went from being, hey, you're training all
Yes.
forward all preseason to get your ass into that midfield, which I think shows that versatility. Well, that was pretty much what happens. But the issue now
Yeah.
is that Ward's going to have pretty much full games of CBA, and he ain't getting forward status. So he's pretty much out of my draft league because I might keep him as a midfielder rotation, but
Keep him
he's
for the
not going to
next 2
be.
days, 2 weeks.
Yeah, so I mean, keep him for and then he's pretty much done. So an interesting one there. So I think that's pretty much it
Uh,
on this game, boys. And we got what, one to go? You got what, someone else?
Yeah, pretty much. Just wanted to mention, yeah. So if you're in draft, Ward is a one-game wonder, pretty much, to bring him in. I think he's in a lot of waivers. And the other one is Himmelberg. So Himmelberg actually went behind the ball in the last quarter. And with Whitfield out, they could look to put him back. And their forward line was shocking. Like they couldn't create a contest. Maybe Cadman does come in this week as one of those guys. So they bring in Cadman. That releases Himmelberg to the back line to replace Whitfield. That could be how they look at doing it. So
Probably
he might be a
plan on
one-game
Cadman
wonder as
too.
well. Sorry,
Just ease him in, ease Cadman in, put him up against
West Coast.
McGovern or Barras. Yeah,
Yeah, guys that are terrible at football. Yeah,
go and learn something from those boys. Would probably be the way to go. And then finishing out the week was Saints and Fremantle,
No,
which
Hawthorn,
was
Hawthorn Essendon, mate.
oh, no kidding. We've still got two. We've got
Yeah.
two to
So this
go.
is this is my
this
game
is
because I
taking
was there.
forever. So sorry about the
Yeah.
marathon, guys.
Mate,
All
I'm
right,
gonna have
so
to break this into segments. I'm sorry for myself. I've got to edit 3 hours
nobody
of
cares,
this
man.
stuff.